Welcome to the Financial Empowerment Roundtable for this month. This month, we will be diving into helping you prepare for tax season. And hopefully we can give you some information that will help your tax season go smoother, and so that you know what to expect. So this roundtable is dollars and deadlines. So welcome. I am Michelle Mitchell, and I am the owner and CEO here of Mitchell Consulting, where we help our clients bridge the gap between their passion and their profit. And in bridging the gap, we started the Financial Roundtable to help with the knowledge base that business owners need in order to bridge the gap between what they're passionate about and the numbers and the profits that their business generates. And today I have a team of people who are helping. Evan Asher, he is our accounting supervisor. He does an amazing job and is very technically sound. Then we have Lauren. She's our business advisor. So if you are in need of any type of business planning, process improvement, anything like that, Lauren is the person to go to. And then we have Eric, who likes to stay in the background, but not really. He's very knowledgeable in accounting. So he supports our accounting clients and doing the bookkeeping in the background. But he shows up on Roundtable, and I love that. So that is the team, and they will actually be running this topic for you today, dollars and deadlines. So we want to make sure we're using our dollars in our business. We're making sure that we use them the best way possible. We keep as much of our profit as we can by strategizing about our tax liability, and just having a process so that you don't feel frustrated like this lady right here, right? So what we strive to do is take away the frustration. And yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I guess, Lauren, are you starting it up?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we want to do introductions. Go back.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we want all of you to introduce yourselves. So go right ahead.
You gonna call us out or we just get to jump in?
Oh, you can jump in. Nikki, go first.
Hi, I'm Nikki, owner of Travel with Nikki, a leisure-based travel agency that's been in operation since 2009 and has been using Mitchell Consulting for 7 or 8 years now, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I am Ethel Wilkie Downs, and I'm a residential realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. I was in a women's business networking group with Nikki and Michelle. And every time Michelle ran the meeting and every time Michelle spoke, I felt like she was speaking directly to me. I am always enamored with her brilliance in the business world, and just happy to be in a room with her again.
Oh, thank you, Ethel. Appreciate that. Tony, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hola, I am Tony Mitchell. I am the owner of a audiovisual company called Texture House, based in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I started 5 years ago now, which is kind of crazy. What, 4 years ago? 4 years ago now. Yeah, I love Michelle. She's my mom.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Where's
Okay.
Evan?
I know.
Where's he at?
Evan, he thought today was Thursday, so
I also thought today was Thursday. It's very weird.
You
so
guys are in.
he'll eventually be here, but he's not here right now. So we're missing Evan. So Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Eric. I've been here for over a year and a half now. Going on, it's been 2 years in June, or I guess end of May. As Michelle said before, I pretty much focus on doing the accounting work for most of the clients, whereas like Evan is kind of the bigger picture accounting guy. So I'm generally the one who's working on all of your books, and he's the one who, does the bigger stuff, the more important stuff. I'm the guy that ChatGPT is going to replace. Evan is the guy.
We can
Evan's
never
the
replace
guy.
you, Eric.
He's the Q. I mean, as I'm doing my best to not get replaced, but ChatGPT is writing poetry now. It's doing everything.
I
So
know, right?
I'm getting pushed aside.
Poetry.
ChatGPT could not put up with me like you do.
Yes, you're irreplaceable, I promise.
Agreed.
I appreciate that.
Yes, you are.
But
Irreplaceable.
once it's $5 a month, I'm sure I'll be expendable in that
Oh,
situation.
sure.
Chat
Anyway,
never will entertain us like you do.
I know,
Never.
right?
Well,
And if you
I'll-
guys didn't know, Eric is an actor, guys.
I was for like 6 years.
A
So
paid actor.
yeah,
Thespian.
if you were a NFL fan, you saw me on Monday Night Football for a couple seasons ago. I sang in the commercial. It wasn't very good. State Farm. No, Nationwide, because it's the Nationwide is on. No, what was it? It was the Peyton Manning.
Nationwide or
It was
Allstate.
like, yeah, no, because it was the Peyton Manning one where he's like, chicken parm, you taste so good. Nationwide is on. Yeah, Nationwide is on your side. It's Nationwide. Anyways,
You were on that, like, what? Wait, what are these lyrics again?
Right.
Oh, it was so bad. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it was a terrible filming. Because they wanted like 17 different takes with all different lines, and it just was a whole disaster. Anyways,
But you were like you were the main star of the commercial.
no, I was Big Eric. That's why I made sure everyone referred to me as Big Eric and didn't look me in the eyes. I mean, that's very important. Standard practice for an actor.
Nice.
And Evan's not here, so I'll introduce him, which is just he's the best. He runs everything, and as I've said before, it will eventually be Evan Consulting Company, because he knows it all. So just
He does.
if you have any questions, just email him and he'll know the answer.
He really does, though.
He really does.
Yeah. And he's so humble and nice about it too.
Yeah.
He's like,
Really, like honest.
I've asked him questions. At the end, he'll be like, you almost had the answer. You were right there. And I'm like, I was not right there.
Encouraging.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe next time you'll have that answer, Eric. And I'm like, no.
Well, thank you, Eric,
I will
for
see
always
my
making us
time.
laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren.
Yes, I am Lauren King Darden. I am the business advisor. I have been with Mitchell Consulting. I was contracting starting from 2020, and then I came on full time in June of 2023. And I, like Michelle said, am great with advising and like really seeing the big picture, not being in the weeds, but like taking a step back and trying to help you reach your goals. Yes, and also I'm really good at process development and improvement. That is like my jam. So if you're at the point where you are trying to grow your team and delegate and get things off your plate, that is kind of like my sweet spot where I can kind of help you get to the next level there. And I'm not as entertaining as Eric. As usual, you should have gone last, but but I will get us started with our topic, which is dollars and deadlines. So today we're talking about all things that are required after you close your year-end books, which is starting off with your 1099's and W-2s. So if you have contractors, you are typically going to have to file your 1099 by January 31st. And If you have employees, you need to, file so that they receive their W-2s by the 31st also. And so just the difference between those is W-2s are for employees, like, like I said, and then the 1099s are for people who aren't employees, and it can be a business or an individual. But if they're not an S corp, which means if they're not if they're not if they didn't file as an S corp or a C corp, then they need a 1099, if that makes sense.
Okay, so for
So
instance, like an individual within their sole proprietor, like they're operating under a DBA or their name, and they have not filed for S corp or corporation status, then you still need to send them a 1099 NEC. So that's the distinguishing difference, and you don't know until they fill out their W-9 form. So if you haven't given your contractors a W-9 form to fill out, you don't know whether or not you need to send a 1099 NEC or not. So that's the first step. Send them a W-9 form. And Lauren can talk about how we at Mitchell Consulting are proactive about W-9 forms so that
we don't
we're
have
not
to.
under pressure in January.
Yeah. It can be a bit of a headache to try to like get people's attention in January because it's a fresh start. Everyone is hitting the ground running on their goals. And so trying to reach out and get that W-9 form is somewhat of a headache sometimes. But, if you're proactive with it, like every time you are working with someone new, I would make it a process to say, hey, we're setting you up in our system so that we can pay you. We need your W-9, we need your, direct deposit information. And also like it could be a part of the contract signing. So like you bring someone on to help you, they either sign a contract, it's just an onboarding process to get that information. So when you build that in, it really saves you a headache at the end of the year because it is really, and
It
you're on a
really is.
deadline. So people not responding to you still kind of have to get it in. But I mean, of course, you can file things after the deadline. It's just going to cost you a little bit more. It'll be a little filing fee there, penalty. So it's not the end of the world, but we always recommend that you're just proactive with that and try to get it right when you start working with people that aren't employees.
Yes. I typically like to tell our contractors, and we reiterate this with our clients, is that we don't pay anyone until we have a W-9 form. So if they want to get paid, we need the W-9 form because we know on the back end, it saves us a bunch of headache in January when people are not paying attention to our emails. And I actually I talked to my daughter today. She went to physical therapy, and her physical therapist is like under pressure because he needs to compile all of his W-9 people for, I guess he has a side business. And she said, well, my mom's company does that, and her clients, they don't have a problem with the 1099 process because they have a process for how they do contract work. And he was like, oh wow, well, it's too late now,. But I needed her then. So maybe Lauren, you could talk about, if you're in that situation, what can we do to alleviate that right now? Because we're under pressure. We have 21 days left to do this.
What we can do as Mitchell Consulting, or like what they can do?
What they can do, give them some tips for what they can do if they're in a situation where like, dang, I didn't know I need to send 1099. Like,
So the first step is, I mean, if you're our client, we can see everyone in the system. Like there is a way to look up everybody we've paid and see what we need to, see who needs a 1099. But, if you're doing your own books, I would, one, kind of look at your accounting system, preferably that you use an accounting system, and pull out everyone who has been paid over $600 for the year, because that's that is the cutoff. If you paid someone $600 or more, they are going to need a 1099 if they aren't an S Corp or C Corp. So I would start there by filtering out anything below that, and know that it's cumulative. It's not at a like it's cumulative. So if I paid them $600, like if I pay them $100 6 times, I still need to give them a 1099. It's not like one transaction. So I would start there, and then I would see, kind of, you can get out some of those vendors that are clearly corporations. I would definitely get rid of those, but those people who you're not sure with, it may be like a small company that you purchase t-shirts from, or a small company that you may have gotten little things here and there from. I would then try to find their information and send them that W-9. A lot of those in-between companies are going to be, they may be a S Corp, they may be a small C Corp, and it will kind of dwindle your list down. But in efforts not to miss anybody, filtering to see who you paid over $600 to is a really good starting point. And Evan's here, and he probably has way better advice than I do, but
You're doing
Hi,
fine.
everyone.
Hi,
Hey,
Evan.
Sorry about that.
So we were just going over what businesses can do to, if they're in a crunch and they haven't gotten their W-9s for the year, how they can kind of filter out the companies that don't need it, versus the companies that do, even if they're in a crunch. So I said start by filtering out all the vendors that you paid over $600, and then filter out the huge companies that we know for sure are corporations, and then kind of dwindle your list down from there, and just send it out. And actually, it might even be easier. Like, if you should be able to get their information pretty easily from their website, or whatever information you've exchanged as you're working with them. But giving them a call is probably the fastest way to get what you want, because people really, especially if they're, depending on the industry or the job that they're doing, they're not, they're kicking off the year. People really are, they kick in high gear in January. So it is hard to get in touch with people through email. So if you just give them a call, hit up their assistant, like anything you can to get in touch with them as quickly as possible will make your job a lot easier.
In the same way that you might be in crunch time trying to get them, they're also in crunch time, I'm sure. So they're probably they probably have 10 emails in their inbox, all from people requesting W-9s. Just to further the point that like direct contact with a call is probably the fastest way.
Yes. And do you know where to get a W-9 if you don't have one?
IRS.gov.
IRS.gov, yes. To get your W-9 form. Also, if you have an accounting system, which we specialize in QuickBooks Online. So our QuickBooks Online system, we can actually request that information without you having to handle personal data. So one of the FTC rules that came out in 2023 was that as a business, we have to safeguard people's personal data. So one of the ways that QuickBooks has gotten around this is that they send the W-9 through their portal, and then that the person fills out that information, and then on your end, you just need to see the information you need to see, not necessarily their social security numbers or their EIN number. So that's one of the ways to safeguard information, is going through a secure portal. But if you're sending these documents via email, I would highly encourage encryption for that email, so that when you receive that information back, that data in transit can be encrypted. So
Another great system for that is Gusto. If
Gusto,
you're not
yes.
on QuickBooks or if you choose use Gusto, it's great for W-2 and contractors, W-2 employees and contractors, and they have great onboarding systems where they kind of put in the process that I talked about earlier, where you're just asking for that information up front before even paying anyone. They have to fill that out for them to be set up in the system. So Gusto is a great system to do any payroll things as well. And if you don't have QuickBooks and you need to file, there are many ways to file. You normally can look at irs.gov to find a couple of filing locations for 1099 specifically. So you don't necessarily need QuickBooks. You can file through QuickBooks and Gusto, but if you don't have any of those systems, there are a couple places you can go online to file your 1099s. And typically there's a little fee, but it's not expensive.
Yeah. The other place I would like to recommend is Track 1099. Is another platform you can use to gather the data for your 1099s and then submit the form to the IRS and the state. So it's a nominal fee, you know, maybe it's $10 per 10 or $15 per form. I do know if you go into like Office Depot, you have to buy a pack of 50. Like that's the smallest pack you can buy. And maybe you only need to send 2 1099s. So maybe a system like Track 1099 would, it's easier to do. And you don't have all this extra paper that you don't need because you only needed to send 2 1099s, you know. So I would recommend that as well.
They make corrections easy too,
Yes, and they make corrections easy in
because
case
that
you
can be
made
a
a
mess
mistake.
with, yeah, that can be a mess with certain softwares, and even more if you're like handwriting and physically mailing all.
I completely forgot that you can handwrite and physically mail.
Yes, you can
Who does that?
handwrite 1099s.
Who mails anything?
Right.
Just kidding. Okay. So any questions on W-2s and 1099s? Nope. Okay. So tax preparation. Once you get past your January 31st deadline, then we hit tax deadlines, which are coming up, and we'll show you all the dates on the next slide. But just remember a couple things as you are preparing for your taxes. It's super important to have accurate books. And so at Mitchell Consulting, that's something that Evan and Eric are great at, is just, you know, making sure that all of your transactions are accurate. They do reconciliations and some other checks to ensure that your books are right. But the things that you can do if you are doing this on your own are, one, in just reconcile to your bank statements for every month. Like you need to make sure that the numbers are adding up. Like the math has to math, because once you file, it costs you money to make corrections. Like you can make corrections, but once you file, you know, it costs extra money, or there will be some penalties and fees if you have to, you know, refile or, you know, make corrections. It's just a headache. So you want to make sure that what is in there is accurate. Also, for document retention, I think you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 3 years that you want to hold on. I know in corporate it was 7 years, but yeah. Okay, so it's 7 for everybody. Okay. 7 years. So make sure that you are organizing and keeping your documents. I am more of an electronic person. So, you know, if you have those, you know, Google file or whatever you use to organize your receipts or invoices and things like that, just make sure that you're keeping them organized for up to 7 years. You want to keep your documents. And another thing that we try to tell people is, if you make money, the government is going to come for that money. So it's very difficult for us to get you a refund if you have positive net income. It really is. And as a business, you want positive net income. You don't want to be, you know, in the red. And I know a lot of our, you know, a lot of people that encounter us that ask the questions like, how do I get a tax refund? It's like a loaded question because we're like, well, we don't want you in the negative. And we don't want you doing any kind of weird strategies to get yourself negative, that, you know, that may be out of compliance. And so the biggest thing to avoid huge payments is to develop a strategy for your taxes and a cash flow strategy to ensure that you can pay your taxes when it comes around, because the only way to get a refund is to have negative money
Mhm.
to not make much, you know, to be in a lower tax bracket with a lot of deductions. So developing a strategy, talking to your tax accountant and also your bookkeepers is a good way to just start off the year, like start that off now. So you want to prepare for your 2024 taxes now, where
Yes.
you're like, okay, I'm implementing these strategies to ensure I have the cash to pay my taxes for next year and this year. You know, you kind of have to start off early, to strategize and prepare for the future. Because again, the government is going to get their cut. Somehow, some way, they're going to get their cut. Doesn't matter how
Right.
much you make. So if, you know, we want you guys to be successful, we want to see green, positive income. And so then we just need to prepare. Any questions or anything else you guys want to add to that, Evan, Eric?
I would just say that if we are a for-profit business, we are not nonprofit. So we are expecting a profit, right? So then we need to develop the strategy, so that you have profit, but then you also need a strategy to handle the tax liability. And then after the net profit on your profit and loss statement, then your tax strategy comes into play that that will handle the EBITDA, right? The difference between your net profit and EBITDA. So what you will owe after everything has been recorded as your tax liability. So you just need a strategy for that. And we are a for-profit business. We're not nonprofits. So therefore, you need to talk through what that strategy should look like for yourself. And it's a team effort between like us as Mitchell Consulting, where we're handling your day-to-day transactions, and your tax professional who will look at your whole life and let you know what your tax strategy could be. So just keep that in mind.
So all the dates. Okay. So most of us probably fall into the April 15th realm if you're like an individual or LLC, like either a sole proprietor or a single member LLC will fall into the April 15th deadline. Once you file as a C Corp, an S Corp, or if you have a multi-member LLC, then you'll have to file by March the 15th. In both cases, you are able to file for extensions. And when you file for an extension, sometimes it comes in handy. Like, for example, in 2020, when the government was going back and forth on how they wanted taxes to work in certain situations with like PPP loans and other other benefits we were getting. Sometimes it makes sense for you to extend and kind of wait things out. Or, I mean, for me as an accountant, sometimes I just needed to do everybody else's stuff. So I would just file an extension for my business as not to add additional stress. I don't know if that is the best practice, but I did do that quite a few times. But if you know that you're not going to meet your deadlines, filing extensions will give you a few extra months, and those extensions will be due for on the September 16th for the S Corps and multi-member LLCs, and then on October the 15th for individuals and single member LLCs. So just keep those deadlines in mind and know that, you know, filing an extension is not the end of the world if you kind of need extra time to get some things together, get your documents together, you can't get to your tax accountant in time. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable to just file an extension, and sometimes it makes your life easier, but our hope and goal is that all of those things are organized so that you can get it done as quickly as possible and move on. But just want to make sure you're aware of what is available to you. Question? Nope. Anything, Eric,
Nikki?
Evan, Eric, any? Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I do have a question. So if you had contractors earlier in the year in 2023 and then transition them over to employees, how do you handle that process?
That's a good question.
Evan?
They're still going to receive a 1099 and a W-2 from you. Because the reason that we're sending a 1099 is because tax wasn't withheld. Those are just direct payments to them, and the government didn't get their portion of the like FICA and Social Security tax. Most payroll processing softwares are able to, like, you're entering the payments in differently each time, so it can easily discern which payments were flat without taxes and 1099 payments and which were W-2, and they'll just receive both of those from you.
So if we move from QuickBooks for payment to Gusto, how do you handle that transition? Because I guess Gusto wouldn't know how much I paid them earlier in the year.
So in the initial setup, there is when you're setting up folks on payroll, there was a little box that asks for like what are the year-to-date wages, so that it can accurately calculate wages paid from a different accounting system. Since we're not looking for W-2 wages from the past, Gusto doesn't have that now, but we can just put that information in. Like, we can run the specific report from QuickBooks, get the totals for all of the contractors, and just input that information, and it'll auto-populate all the 1099 forms for you.
Okay.
So that's honestly, that also makes me think that it's a good idea for you to reach out to those folks that are going to be getting both those from you, and just maybe sort of curb their anxiety and tell them, like, yes, expect to get both of these tax forms from me, and you're going to have to file both of these when you submit your 1040 for yourself.
Okay.
Yes. And also, Evan, what is Gusto's deadline?
For sending them?
No, for making any adjustments to, because I think it's coming up the 15th.
Let me look.
Don't tell me
Yeah,
that.
there is a deadline
Stop it.
for that as well.
Where do I even go?
So that
too
they
many
have
buttons.
the information that they need to submit your information to the IRS accurately. So
it makes sense. I get it.
Yes. And
But where?
it's already done. It's probably already done. When we onboarded you into Gusto, it's already done. But just know that Gusto also has a deadline when you can make changes, because you don't want to submit the forms and then have to do a correction to the IRS, you know. So they want to make sure they have enough time to implement those changes that you have. There was another thing that popped in my head I wanted to make sure.
If for some reason you are able to do sort of like a hybrid where, like, let's say, all your W-2 employees are set up and everything's accurate in Gusto, but you're struggling to get like W-9s, you can just elect to have Gusto only submit W-2s, and you can use another service for your 1099s if you need a little bit more time to collect everything and have it accurately submitted. You're not tied to doing everything all through one channel. While it is easier if everything's done on time to make that possible. But I would argue that, like, if you were in a crunch, it would probably end up being more beneficial to you to make sure take a little extra time initially to make sure everything's filed correctly, so that you're not trying to track down mistakes, halfway into the year when you're notified that something was wrong.
Yeah.
When you've mentally put that season behind you.
Yeah.
And
And
What
to
do you
piggyback off of that, I mean, it is very common for people to miss this deadline. It's not something we recommend, but we want to, be like realistically, people miss it all the time. And so if you're like worried or in a crunch that you won't get all the information you need, I know QuickBooks, if you have QuickBooks, I believe you can file through April 30th. But again, you'll have like some penalties for filing late. Um, but I think April 30th is the date,
Mhm.
the last date that they'll let you file
Yes, that they'll let you make any changes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
to 1099.
to
And then
1099.
after that, you have to use another system. But
Yeah.
again, you'll the track 1099, I think, lets you file whenever. I don't think there's like a deadline where they stop allowing you to file. But again, you'll get hit with some of those late fees and penalties.
Yeah, and if you're just like you missed one person, you can still submit that one person. So I would submit the bulk of
Mhm.
your 1099s before the deadline and you can avoid the penalty. And then if you've just happened to miss someone, you can file that one later. So
Okay.
don't ignore it, file it later. So
I'm happy
um,
I asked you this question because I forgot I had an intern last year, and I need to send them a 1099.
yeah,
I was like, oh, that was last spring. Wow.
yeah. And Gusto does an amazing job sending reminder emails that we,
Well, this wasn't through Gusto. This
Oh my
was
God.
through
yeah,
Dude.
QuickBooks. Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
which is why we love.
I have a question myself for you, technical folks. So I saw something where if you paid people through like Stripe or PayPal that you may not have to file. Is that still true or
Oh,
is
word?
that a thing? No, no, no. Hold on. Let them say yes or no because I'm asking.
I'm gonna take it as a yes. Okay, thanks, y'all. I'm out. Have a good
Just
day.
leave the meeting.
Because I know PayPal sends 1099s and like
So I
sometimes.
believe
I'm pretty sure.
so yes, 2023 was supposed to be the year that third-party apps such as PayPal, Venmo, Stripe is going to start sending 1099s to people that they transacted money to that's over $600. I believe that date got extended to 2024. So not yet. I believe it got
Okay.
extended.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
is it
that's the
$600 is the cutoff?
upcoming.
Yeah. And I do know for some merchant services, if like in the old rules, if you had less than 200 transactions, they would not send you a 1099 K for your transactions. It is up to you to send those 1099s that were processed by credit card. So it's a little confusing, a little murky because the rule is changing.
So just send it anyway.
Just
I
send it
guess
anyway.
on our
Yeah,
side.
that's what I would
Okay.
do.
Yeah, that's if you would much rather do the little extra work to send too many now than
Yeah.
get a notice from the IRS in 4 months saying you should have sent this in previously,
Correct.
Mhm.
Yes.
which is a
Yeah.
very accountant answer, I think. Be pragmatic.
Yeah. So I know that topic is very confusing. So any other questions?
I guess my question would be, since I'm using, Mitchell Consulting for everything, is there anything proactive I need to do on my end, or do I just bless and release and you guys take care of it?
That's such a good question.
I think the proactiveness is, I think Lauren kind of mentioned this earlier, is like have an internal policy of like I won't pay contractors until I receive a W-9 from them. Little things like that. Like we're happy to do all of the back end work, but ultimately we can't do that unless we have what we need from vendors. So that's kind of like that's one of the lower lifts of just having that be sort of like across the board policy. Like, I'm not going to remit this payment until I get that, because I know this is potentially going to cause me problems or stress, 6 months down the line when I realize I have to collect this from you.
And is
Yeah.
there a report, like either you guys can run or we can run to see who those people are, like that we have paid out more than 600 to?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can pretty extensively run filters in QuickBooks to pull vendors you paid over $600, and then also filter it more to specific expense categories, or filter it by like folks that a lot of them you even can just enter starting as a contractor instead of just putting them in as a regular vendor. And that'll notify QuickBooks to know, like, hey, let's track every payment that goes to this person. Sometimes it ends up being superfluous and you don't even have to send them a 1099. But again, like, the more upfront work, the better prepared you are to potentially not have to do that.
So, question, if is a contractor someone who does services for you, or is it buying goods from a person as well, or renting equipment?
It's both.
All of the above.
All of the above?
Yes.
If they're
If
not
you
an
paid
S corp or
someone
C
else
corp.
to do anything for you,
Mhm.
it could be goods and services. So,
Okay.
mhm.
What were you saying, Laura? Anything else but what?
Anything but a C corp and an S corp. So when we think of contractors, I know a lot of times we're thinking like, oh, I'm bringing on this person specifically to work on this thing for me internally, but we don't think of like the small business that helped us with this thing or that thing, or like those smaller
Yeah,
companies
like
we may
if you give
use.
out Christmas gifts and they package the gifts for you, we don't think about them, but they need a
Sure.
1099.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like for you, if you have someone who rents out space to you, but they're, a single member LLC, they could possibly be someone that needs a 1099 also. But they're not necessarily working for your company directly, but they're a smaller company that still needs a 1099.
You need to send a W-2 out every time you work with someone like
A W-9.
A W-9. Yes. Just as a part of the process. Like when I worked in corporate, they sent W-9s to every single person. Like that was a
Their
part of their
process.
onboarding process to get paid. Like no matter how big or small the company, they had to send a W-9. They had to send like proof that they weren't fake. They had to do some other research to make sure that they were a real vendor, but they were onboarding vendors constantly. And a W-9 was one of the, they wouldn't put anybody in the system without it.
Yeah.
So it's, as a small business, it's like you don't even really think about that for random small services that you need here and there. But yeah.
And also, you never know when you're going to meet the threshold either. So,
Yeah.
maybe initially, okay, this thing is only $125. I don't need to think about them.
If you do that,
But, in the last half of the year, like, oh my God, this person can do blah, blah, blah for me. And you forgot about the $125 you did early in the year, so it's always a good practice to just submit the W-9 form whenever you're engaging with other people that you're going to pay. So no matter what capacity it's in. And then back to Nikki's point about what should you be doing to be more proactive, just creating your own process for that, sending out that as part of your process when you're thinking about engaging with an outside vendor, is automatically sending them a W-9 form. But because you're a client with Mitchell Consulting, we run your vendor list anyway, no matter what, to see who you paid over $600. Like we just automatically do that. So then we know, like, oh, this list of people we have W-9s for, but these 3 people we don't. So that's when we reach out to you.
So if you're a client of Mitchell Consulting, if I have not heard from Evan, does that mean I'm in the clear?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Pretty much, but it is the 10th of the month, so give us a couple days.
Oh,
more
okay.
days.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The
because
The
what
only-
we do in our process, we start looking at vendors in November
Yeah.
1st.
Uh-huh.
So we really do try to be proactive about this, because I've done it wrong for many years and been under a crunch in January. So we just alleviate that pressure by doing it in November.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to add about being proactive is just like every month, when we send you the transactions we're not sure about,
Mhm.
get back to us, because we had an issue last year where someone didn't get back to us throughout the whole year, and then January came and they ended up finding out they had to file late 1099's
Mhm.
because they hadn't realized that, oh, this person needed a 1099, because they just took too long to respond to everything. So it all built up. They were busy. It was January. You know how it is. If you don't do, it's just got to do a little at a time. You just do a little each month or the end of the year. Yeah, it's not fun emails.
Yes. So respond back when we send you an email in
Yeah.
your waiting for account. We really need to
Yeah.
know what these transactions were for.
If you see my name, don't put it to the spam. That's all I ask.
Right.
You don't have to star it, just not the spam.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like little things, like these things that are, we're asking to be implemented they don't take a lot of time. They just kind of seem daunting if you're not 100% sure of what to do. So, it shouldn't take longer than like a few minutes for each vendor to get that information. But if you don't know to do it, then so yeah, that'll just make your life a tad easier.
I
So
guess I
go
didn't
ahead.
know why Evan kept asking who were you paying on Vimeo or Venmo.
Exactly.
I'm not just curious.
And now I have
Or
to go back
Tasha.
through my whole Venmo from last year and figure out.
It would have been better if you did it 1 month at a time, because it was fresh in your mind.
Mhm.
I didn't
Yeah.
understand the context. I didn't know. I mean, how was I
Yeah.
supposed to know?
Well,
The
now
bane
you
of
know.
an
Evan just asked a
That-
question. He just asked questions with no context, and I say, I don't think so. Good.
This is one side of the story.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, lesson 1, we're not just nosy. We ask questions for a reason. Lesson 2, Cash App, Venmo are the bane of our existence.
Yes.
I really hate those, but
I can-
it's
And
very
I
easy to
really
send
would
money
encourage
with
you
no.
to read the user terms of service for Venmo and Cash App. I would encourage you just to read it.
So just like Evan saying things, asking questions, what is the context of you saying that? Why are you telling us to do that?
Because if you're using a personal app to collect money for a business, goes against the terms of service.
Wait, what? No. What?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Read your terms
Yeah.
of service.
Tony, I've had some in the travel industry that have tried to use Venmo for things like that, and then Venmo just shuts off their entire account and they have no access to those funds that someone was
Yep.
paying them through.
There's so many companies
Exactly.
that use Venmo though.
They do.
What
Like-
I would encourage you to do is read your terms of service. We do have a solution
What is
for
your-
you that you don't have to use Venmo and Cash App. But if you want your funds held, go right ahead and use it. We're not going to say no, but we also know that there's a better way.
Which is
PayPal.
PayPal?
Well, you can use PayPal, but
Yeah.
we also have the QuickBooks merchant account as well. It operates the exact same way.
Does the outside person have to set up an account with them?
Nope, you can send them a link and they can pay.
They just have to put in their information,
Mhm.
and you don't even have to take their information. Like, they just get a link
No.
to fill out how they want to get paid, whether it's a check or direct deposit. And it only costs you, I think it might cost you less money. Does it
Yeah.
cost to send money?
Yeah, merchant,
It's free to
Um,
send direct deposits.
direct deposits.
And they don't have I don't think they get charged a fee like you would through
Right.
PayPal.
Yeah.
So that's easy. It's just a little bit of extra oomph to get it set up, and then you can just do it.
And if you can do it, I'd recommend it. But my industry, QuickBooks, won't let me do
I
it. Michelle
know.
tried so hard.
I
Oh,
But
did.
really?
yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Oh, man.
Yeah, some
It's too high
industry,
risk.
yeah, high risk industries, some merchant accounts you can't use, but there are ones for your industry if you're in those types of industries. So we did find a solution for Nikki, but it took us a while to figure out what we could and could not do. Yeah.
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 We had to read all those terms and conditions.
Yes, we did. Yes.
I was like thinking back, like, how did I pay for my trip? I paid some other system, but yeah.
I guess it makes sense that Nikki, a lot of your clients would be paying through Venmo, would want to pay through Venmo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. For those, concierge services that I have, it would be great if I could go through Venmo, but I've had so many of my counterparts in the industry use it for a couple of years, but then they'll get shut down and they'll have, $3,000 in Venmo that they have no access to.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that was my thing. I'm like, okay, I'm not using Venmo.
Yeah. So take our advice.
for your industry, Tony, you should be fine.
Yeah, you should be fine.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, like, okay, this is maybe gonna like derail this whole conversation, but this is maybe a question for Evan more than anyone else. But I mostly use Venmo for my band. So venues, like straight up other like businesses will pay through Venmo. Like they'll pay out through Venmo or normally Venmo or Cash App. So what do you do in that situation when they're like, okay, well, here's $500 for the show?
I mean, I feel like it kind of comes down to the minutia of it because it's like technically terms in Venmo say you're not allowed to do that. So like you would be like, well, like you could totally be like, I can't accept payment that way. Can you write me a check? Can you pull cash from the till or something like that? Which I understand is maybe just sort of an uncomfortable conversation because they're probably not really trying to do that. But I mean, that's really the only like rebuttal that I can think of is like technically they should they should have the means of paying you with a check or some other way because it is while not broadly enforced, it is still technically against like the rules to be receiving business money on your Venmo. Or if you really have to do that, then you can set up because I feel like maybe Venmo doesn't, but some of these apps have like you set up a business profile
Right.
that's tied to your business's EIN. So instead of it being your personal account that's basically serving as the like middle person that's like filtering the money is like you can have a Venmo account that's tied instead of to your social security number, it's tied to your company's EIN. And then it's totally fine to get business funds to that and then divvy it up however you need to. The real issue just comes from if your account is tied to like just you as the individual and then you're taking in like Mitchell Productions money.
Correct. Okay. So so mine is a very particular situation. So if it's set up as a business account on Venmo, then it's not the same as a personal, right?
And Venmo does they do have business. The difference though is like, so this is the thing, when you pay people through Venmo and PayPal, sorry, not PayPal, and Cash App, like these personal accounts, you can easily pay someone under the table where they don't have to file, and that's where we get into trouble, right? Because I
Mhm.
told you the IRS is going to get their money. So if you are paying under the table, you don't have to pay tax on their money. If you do the business account, then that company, that merchant processor, is going to be tracking your money differently. And then that's how sometimes you'll get a 1099 from PayPal, you get a 1099 from this other company, because they know that it's for business. So if you have they do have a Venmo business account, but it's not going to be the free transactions that we love. And so
Mhm.
you'll still get charged to process payment. And then that money will also be filed to show that you earned money as a business through their app. So when you're using the personal, like Nikki was saying, when people's stuff gets shut down, it's because they're
Using
using their personal. So if you have a business Venmo, and so that you can just do business for yourself, and if that's how it works for your team, just make sure that you update the profile you're using to the Venmo. But that is going to cost you more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because if I had to guess, most people that are sending business money through Venmo, whether that's like super conscious or not, it's like trying to get past the
Yes.
taxation of that taxable income. You know?
Absolutely.
Whether or not they're explicitly saying it, it's like, plus also a lot of people are using accounts that they set up a long time ago. So even if they are principally using their Venmo account as a business account, chances are they might have set it up years ago and it's just tied to their individual person, you know.
Correct.
This has been very helpful, very enlightening.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. So thank you for joining us. What happened to my other side? Okay, if you need help with anything, feel free to use our QR code. And this will allow you to request a meeting with us to kind of go over any concerns that you have. We are available to help with all of the things we talked about today. And why do things by yourself when you can have a team do it for you, right? Let us do what we're good at so that you can do what you're good at. So if you need any help, feel free to use our QR code to set up a meeting with us. And if you have any other questions, just let us know. So I guess we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you.
Thanks
Cool.
for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.